Backroads is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money by the vote of the people, November 4th, 2008.
Happy birthday to me, I ain't where I'm supposed to be. Stuck between the real life and dreams. It's a problem, I suppose, when I can't afford no shoes or clothes. There's a price of living free. 4 decent wheels carry me far across these open fields, fueled by the fire in my soul. Might die trying, but I'm so dang close to flying. No one really knows the time to go. So shoot from the hip. We're all dying just to live. So shoot from the hip. We're all dying just to live. Dying to live. Dying to live. I got $1.63. That don't really bother me. This money's here and then it's gone. I got 2 holy shoes and a guitar full of blues and a few well-worn songs. Sit and stay a while I try so hard to make you smile. Hope the song and set you free. Hope you understand all the notes trapped in these aching hands and the pain that rests inside of me. So shoot from the hip. We're all dying just to live. So shoot from the hip. We're all dying just to live. Dying to live. Dying to live. Don't tell me the odds. It's either I succeed or I'll wake up next to God. Don't tell me the odds. It's either I succeed or I'll wake up next to God. It's either I succeed or I'll wake up next to God. Either I succeed or I'll wake up next to God.
Yeah, so my name is Merrill Miller. I do like Americana folk type stuff. And I have a band kind of spread throughout Wisconsin, but I'd say a good majority of the shows that I play are mostly solo shows at the moment. Yeah, so I picked up guitar when I was about 13, 14 years old. My dad had a 1949 Gibson J45, which if you don't know anything about guitars, just know that is a very, very expensive guitar. And when I was about 13 years old, I started plinking around with it. And I remember one day while I was just messing around with it, broke a string. And I remember the fear that shot through my heart at that moment. And I just tucked it away and put it back under his bed where it was at. And he never said anything about it, but come my 14th birthday, he gave me a little $50 Johnson acoustic as my first guitar. And I think it was even before my birthday, but it's an early birthday present. So that's what I learned on. And I grew up in Mississippi, so I grew up around a lot of 3-chord country, bluegrass, blues, honky-tonk type stuff. And so as soon as I learned 3 chords, my dad would take me down to these little barn circles in the middle of nowhere. And we'd play Friday, Saturday night, starting at 6, 7 p.m. It was like a little potluck, and we'd be out there until about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning every weekend. And so that's really where I learned how to play guitar. So Grew up in church playing lead guitar electric, and fast forward to 2021, I believe it was, and I had been working in finance. I had just taken a new job, and I found out that the guy had basically hired me to yell at me in front of clients and blame all of his mistakes on me. And so I said, thanks, no thanks. I'm going home, and got my car and I left. It's a 90-mile commute, so about an hour and a half. I got about 2 miles into that 90-mile commute, and my engine, without warning, just exploded. And I ended up getting home, but for the next 3 months, I had no job, no car, and nowhere to go because it was middle of winter in Wisconsin. And so I was plinking around on my guitar as I was doing and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with life. And I said, well, I've been a guitarist at that point for about 15 years. Why not try to write music and make a go at it? Worst thing that I can do is fail, and I can check that off of saying, well, that didn't work, and move on to something else. And that's when I started writing music. And that's where I'm at now.
I was only 18 when I first left home. No kind of plan and nowhere to go. I made my way up the interstate. My Ford got stolen, so I was driving a Chevrolet. When I lost a wheel, that's where we am. I hadn't made it very far, just south of Memphis, when along came a sheriff down on 61. He looked at me and he said, now listen, son. There's a long tired road ahead. Take care of yourself lest you wind up dead. Better yet, why don't you just go home? Be with your family instead of out here on the road. Said I wish I could, ain't nothing there. Daddy chose a bottle and he never really cared. So I'm making my way back up north. Don't know how I'll make it, but it can't be any worse. Well, we fixed the wheel, I was on my way. Things are uneventful until the break of day, when the starter died in Illinois. The man who fixed it said, now listen, boy. There's a long tired road ahead. Take care of yourself lest you wind up dead. Better yet, why don't you just go home? Be with your family instead of out here on the road. I wish I could, but life doesn't happen like you think it should. I wish I could, but life doesn't happen like you think it should.
Yeah, so being in Mississippi, I grew up in Greenville, Mississippi, which is kind of the heart of the Delta Blues. And again, I didn't really go to many live music events there. It was mostly my dad and I going to these little barn circles, be in a place very similar to this, somebody's pole barn or like shed or something like that. There would be anywhere from half a dozen to 3 dozen people, and we'd all be sitting in a circle together, and we just go right on down the line. And, you know, they'd say, Good-Hearted Woman, the key of A, and we'd all start playing, and that one song, which would, the original song is maybe 2 or 3 minutes, could possibly take 6-7 minutes, because he'd be like, Jerry on the slide, and he'd take a solo, and then he'd pass it to the harmonica player, who'd pass it to the fiddle, and so on and so forth. I was born in Wisconsin, raised there until I was about 6, and then I grew up in Mississippi, and then came back up when I was 18. And being in Milwaukee, I spent the last 4 years in Milwaukee, and they have a really eclectic music scene, which is really cool. They have a pretty solid, punk indie scene, which is also really cool. I grew up on a lot of that as well. But coming up to Duluth, it's really interesting because, there are people, not that people in Milwaukee didn't listen, but there are people who will more attentively listen to somebody, playing guitar off in the corner or something like that. Whereas with my experience in Milwaukee, again, I had an overall positive experience, but you walk into a coffee shop, somebody with an acoustic guitar is in the background, they're just kind of in the background. And the goal from the owners, whenever I would play those types of shows, would always be, just kind of provide ambience, not necessarily a show. And so, I was just playing a show at a brewery last night, and I'm getting over a little bit of congestion. And so I wasn't sure I wasn't 100%, but I wasn't even sure. It's okay, I feel well enough to play. I'm not bad enough to cancel, but, I'm not going to push 100%. And so it was kind of one of those things where I was like, all right, I'm going to, push myself more to the background per se and stuff like that. But there were probably, 9, 10 people. It was a kind of slow night, but the 9 or 10 people that were there, I would look up occasionally, and they'd all be sitting there looking at me. And afterwards, they would come up and be like, hey, I really like that one song about this and whatever. And so I think that's a very interesting kind of dynamic with the Duluth areas. People are very kind of intentional when they see live music, which is really cool.
You can bend, but don't you break. All you do is give. All they do is take. No, you never cry. Never bare your soul. And this burden you carry is more than I can know. You're never alone. You're never alone. You trust me with your life, never with your soul. Never let us in to keep yourself from harm. Oh, you lock the doors, all the curtains closed. Though you don't believe me, you're not in this alone. So you never speak. Cause you might appear too weak. So again you rise, you stand, just to prove you're real man. All the pills, they help you sleep, but the demons still haunt your dreams. So you keep the bottle close, but no, you are never alone. You're never alone. You're never alone. Oh, hold the line. You can bend, but don't you break. All you do is give. All they do is take. No, you never cry. Never bare your soul. And this burden you carry is more than I can know.
Been a really cool experience so far. Growing up, I was more of a introverted, shy type of kid, and never really spoke up or did anything like that. And it was interesting because growing up, I had kind of a rough childhood, and there were a lot of things that I just dealt with. And so being up on stage, it's very interesting. And again, being an introvert, a shy kid, you'd think that I would get stage fright, which isn't the case, oddly enough. I really enjoy getting up and, performing for people. But when people tell me that a certain song resonated with them or something of that sort, it always, strikes me because, my faith and music have helped me through a lot of those tumultuous times and everything of that sort. And so for somebody to tell me, hey, that song really resonated with me, is really meaningful, because it's like, okay, like I wrote this song for myself. Again, my songwriting process was more journalistic in nature, but over the years, it slowly started to kind of switch of like, okay, I went through this experience. I survived this experience. I want to create something that'll help somebody get through a similar experience and make it to the other side. And so it's always, just really encouraging anytime somebody, is able to make that connection or shares, what they got out of that music or that song.
Upon whiskey and communion wine, oh, it's still the truth, but I know how to lie. I ask forgiveness and all of my wayward prayers. I grew up a saint, but I grew up in sin. I knew my best and not let temptation win. But that come Friday, I feel like I'm a man in black. I'm a little bit of Jesus and a bit of Johnny Cash. My mother's son, wishing my father's regret. Try to move past it, but it hasn't happened yet. And it pisses me off in my drunken despair. Sitting in church with my hazy mind, and clearly see the answers, but I choose to go blind. There come Sunday, I feel look on the man in black. I'm a little bit of Jesus and a bit of Johnny Cash. Oh, oh, how I cry. Oh, oh, how I try. Oh, to do what is right. I'm a little bit of Jesus and a bit of Johnny Cash. I wake up on Monday with a pounding head. Pray for forgiveness and you'll never drink again. I know that God hears me cause I can hear him laugh. I'm a little bit of Jesus and a bit of Johnny Cash.
I moved up to Duluth, like I said, about a year ago to join a different band. And I had actually at that point been looking to move down to Nashville, more south. I jokingly say that the reason was because Milwaukee last year broke the number of consecutive days for days over like 94 degrees with a high of like 117 or something crazy like that. And I was like, why do I live in a place that's negative 40 in the winter and 117 in the summer? This is stupid. And having grown up in Mississippi, I was like, well, I'll just go back down south, go to Nashville. And that obviously didn't end up working out. And I got a call, moved up to Duluth. And, they're like, do you want to come on up to Duluth? And I was like, I wasn't really planning on it, but we'll give it a shot. Why not? And didn't really expect too much of it. But I will say it's been a lot more welcoming. People in the best way are aggressively friendly. And so people are always like, oh, you should link up with this other guy, so-and-so. And the musical community there has been great. Just, interacting with people, talking with people. So I got to Duluth on a Monday. I played an open mic on a Wednesday and I got a message from somebody with zero mutual connections on Facebook. And they said, hey, I really like your music. I see that you're in town. Do you want to play a show this Sunday? And I was like, how do you know who I am? How do you know that I'm even in town? And long story short, I played that show. It was a little charity fundraiser. And that's how I got my normal job now. I am Native American, Mohican, Stockbridge, Muncie Band of Mohicans. And it's been an interesting journey with that, because I have a cousin who is also a musician. His name is Bill Miller, and he has 3 Grammys, I think. And I don't necessarily actively tout that when I'm like booking shows and stuff like that, because I don't want to be, oh, Bill's cousin. I want to make my own music and kind of make my own way. But it is funny because, how many Native American musicians are there with the last name Miller in the Midwest? I played a show in a tiny little town in Wisconsin called Wanawak with a population of like 600 people at a wine bar. And this wine bar is a very, very small place. They have like maybe, a dozen and a half chairs. And the place was packed. There were probably about two and a half dozen people that had showed up. And some of them had seen me at another show or had seen that I was playing with a friend of theirs from the area, and they wanted to see me and they weren't able to make it. But there were other people who they saw my name on the poster, and they saw I have little logos and stuff like that. They saw the logos and they're like, do you think he's related to Bill?
Smell of old leather and cigarette smoke. I hung on every word that he spoke. Man, times late at night when I prayed. Raise me up, raise me right. He taught me to cherish His God-given life. He taught me to always make my mama proud and be the type of man that folks want around. No more chasing no high-end skirts. Don't be afraid of a little dirt. Don't get caught up by past regrets. These are the lessons I learned from Dad. These are the lessons I learned from Dad. He taught me how to drive in my 93 Ford 4.0 and 5 speed on the floor. He wrote his sermons and smoked cigarettes. These are the memories I have of Dad. These are the memories I have of Dad. I know we weren't close, but I wish we were. I'd give anything to have you back on earth. Know that you're smiling and I shouldn't be sad. You were far from perfect, but you were still my dad. Yeah, you were far from perfect, but you were still my dad. I had my share of broken hearts, plenty of nights closing down the bars. Always find my way back to God again. Guess that's something I learned from Dad. Yeah, that's something I learned from Dad.
Backroads is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money by the vote of the people, November 4th, 2008.